when we started thinking about Convocation this year and really focusing on all of the things that we're doing as a school system, it became evident that we really wanted to step back and say, okay, what are the fruits of that labor? Where does this end up? What's the end game here? And so we started talking with Chris Hampton and said, Chris, what if we brought back a DB grad to kind of talk a little bit about their experiences, their life, how things, have turned out for them. It took him about that long to say, got it, I know who I want to talk to. And we're very pleased and privileged to have with us today Charlsey Mahle to come back to us. You may remember her as a 2000 grad of Dobbins-Bennett. She was a multi-sport athlete while at DB. Has, once leaving us here in Kingsport, went on to graduate from the military academy at West Point. She served 2 tours in Iraq, 2 years in the Army Reserve, was awarded the Bronze Star, and is now residing in Fort Knox, Kentucky. And we are so pleased to have Charlsey with us today to share her time and her experiences with us, and we welcome her to the podium. Ms. Mahle.
I am so honored to be a part of this convocation, I just have to say, and I want to thank Chris Hampton, Andy True, and Dr. Alshai for giving me the opportunity, and also to Mary Beth for her behind-the-scenes help. I do want to apologize ahead of time for any pauses or delays. I'm 5 months pregnant, and I often feel like my mind is not my own. As I was preparing for today, I found this and had to share it with y'all, and hopefully too many of you haven't seen it. Yeah, you think it's the kid, it's the teacher. No, but in all seriousness, they're coming. Next Monday. And there's like a buzz and excitement throughout town. And it happens in lots of towns across the country this time of year. Kids are getting excited. I took my daughter to Johnson Playground just last week, and while I was there, I met a kid named Shane. And through conversation, he said excitedly, "We find out our teachers this week." And I remember that feeling. He's just so excited to find out who it's going to be. And he was a little wary about one and, kind of hoping he'd get one of the other two. But he pointed to the building. Yeah, there's always that one. He points to the building, and there's a blonde-headed lady over there. And he said, "You see that lady over there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's my favorite 4th grade teacher." And I said, "Really? What, she must be great." And he said, "Yeah, she's great. Her name's Miss Hobbs." So, Miss Hobbs from Johnson, if you're out there, Shane really thinks you're great. But Shane's not the only one. I'm 14 years out of high school, and I realize that's not many years compared to some of you. But I can still tell. I didn't mean that as an insult, it's just a fact. But I can still tell you who had a major impact on my life, and I bet you can do the same. The teachers who invest in our lives day to day and the life lessons they impart really stick with us. So that you can understand a bit about how the school system has impacted me, you would have to know a little bit about my past and my family. For it's through the hardship and the challenges in my life that I feel like God molded me into who I am today. I'll tell you the little story of a little girl who was born to unmarried parents in rough circumstances. My parents were caught up in addiction and the drug world, and my father was incarcerated for some serious drug charges from when I was born until I was 6. My mother was a recovering alcoholic and drug addict who struggled with changing her life. Now, though my parents lived the hard life when I was young, they did get somewhat of a grasp on addiction. My mom got straight and began working as a nurse in the hospital, and my dad took considerably longer to do so, but was later present in my life. Nonetheless, there were still many challenges with a broken family and the financial aspect. Fortunately for me, my stepfather Ralph became a strong figure in my life who helped guide me to success in many ways. And through that marriage, I also got 2 stepbrothers. One, Tom Williams, who actually worked in the school system before, at a pivotal time for me, middle school. I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight what a great influence Tom was on my life. And even though he's my family, this school system, DB football, and inspiring young kids are definitely in his blood. I started out in the Head Start program and later went on to kindergarten at Kingsley Elementary. I came to this Kingsport city school system as a first grader. I started the first grade at Johnson Elementary with the sweetest woman that ever walked the earth as my first grade teacher, Miss Betty White. With a twinkle in her eye, she made me feel like I was the most important person she'd see all day, even if I couldn't make a perfectly round O like Emily. I never really knew I was behind until asking my mom yesterday, and she told me how fabulous Miss White was at accepting me exactly where I was and helping to catch me up with the other students. Miss White worked for 41 years in this school system and is here with that same twinkle in her eye today. Thanks for coming today, Miss White. If they'd given me an hour, I could list 50 teachers, coaches, staff, faculty, and key players who made a huge impact on me. But given my 15-minute time hack, I'll mention only 30. Okay, just 10. While I was at Johnson, I had the privilege of having Miss Sunshine Sorrells, and boy, did she live up to that nickname. She's kind of a legend, too. Miss Sorrells bled enthusiasm. She made us believe that we were so very special and precious. We walked out of her room every day feeling like stars. And it's not just the teachers who are special. I'll never forget Carol Sweeney, who collected our lunch money. If I ever forgot my money, she always made sure I was taken care of. She spared me embarrassment or shame and helped me with a smile. While at Robinson, I had the privilege of being coached by Coach Doug Wagner, another legend. What a guy. He loves teaching so much that he retired, and he comes back to substitute. Now that's how you know you love teaching. He had such a love for coaching us on and off the courts. I learned so much from him about patience, discipline, and dedication to becoming a great athlete. One personal story, I got injured fairly badly at a track meet one year. Went to the hospital to get 28 stitches in my knee. And when I returned to the field, after the stitches, Coach Wagner was standing there and said, "Okay, you ready to run your race?" I was so motivated by him, I said, "Yeah, let's go." And of course, I was pulled away by my mom and parents, thought that was a bad idea, but it just goes to show you how much he had instilled in me the drive to win and succeed, that I wanted to go back. And then there was also Coach Minton. She was one of my first coaches for basketball. I'll never forget how patient yet pursuing she was of us to work hard. She coached with urgency and gentleness at the same time. Even if I came to practice after a long day of the middle school grind, she helped refocus me, get me fired up, and help me stop thinking about everything else. There's countless others at Robinson, including Miss Bratton, who somehow, I guess with the patience of Job, taught me algebra. High school was an extremely pivotal time for me. During my freshman year, my mom had a relapse with her addiction and was admitted to a rehab center for quite some time. Being without my mom at that time and dealing with all the confusion that caused our family was tough, but there were strong people around me to help me through. Teachers who kept me focused, encouraged me, and supported me. I think of two being Coach Bingham and Coach Barrett. They helped me channel my energy to the track and helped me succeed despite the hardship. Others, like my international relations teacher, who took a couple lessons out to have us tell our personal story and share something that impacts us. He was different. He thought differently, and somehow he taught me to think differently. Not to accept the world as it was, but to try to change it. Mr. Brooks and Mr. Hampton, my advisors at the time, patiently helping me pave the way on how to apply to West Point. I was the first to do so in decades, but they never mentioned a word of caution or doubt. Instead, they served as my springboard to success. Legendary people like Tom Cohenauer and Nellie McNeil had their prints on me too. I really don't need to say much other than their names because their reputation precedes them, but I'll elaborate. Many of you may know if you ran for him that Coach Cohenauer used to take time after every cross-country meet to type out an individual response to every one of us and tell us exactly how he felt about our race, what he thought we could do better. That's just a personal touch you don't get anywhere but here. I held on to his words like gold. They were inspiration for my soul, and I still have every one of those papers. And finally, the one I give the most credit for my going to West Point, Nellie McNeil, a legendary woman who was fearless in her teaching and in her pursuit of life. She was my 11th grade English teacher. It's about that time of year when juniors start thinking about college. And while I had the thought in my head I would go to college, I certainly hadn't thought past going to a local state school or somewhere nearby. Nellie convinced me to try out for Girls State. I went to Girls State and learned a lot about government and service. When I came back, she said to me in her charming South Carolina accent, "Charlsey, have you ever heard of the long gray line?" I said no. In fact, I was clueless. I hardly had a concept at all about military service, much less an academy. She said, "Honey, you ought to try to go there." That simple question was all it took for my eyes to open to an incredible opportunity. She helped me with contacting the academy, getting references from senators, and writing my applications. And I know that definitely wasn't in her job description. Because of her and so many other teachers before her who had invested in me, taught me how to get involved, build my college file, and because of the strong academic requirements of this school system, I had a great application prepared for West Point. And the rest, well, is history. Just that one conversation led to a life of change. Now, I've shared these small anecdotes about specific people, but it's not just about those people. It's about the opportunity that teachers, staff, and faculty in schools get to influence lives daily. Do you realize what greatness you can contribute to? Do you realize how important those small words of encouragement are? That extra hour of help or that mentoring, what it can do? You can change a life. And these people changed mine. And because they took a chance on me, I got the opportunity of a lifetime. In a day and age where there's so much pressure on you to follow lesson plans, produce exceptional test scores, you have to take time out to make sure you are investing personally in each student. Find the good in them. And though it's trite, a positively focused teacher can propel a kid to great heights. And they're not paying me to say this. I get that you can't do it with every student, and not everyone's going to respond positively to you. But don't lose sight of how powerful and influential of a position you have as their teacher. Although they have attitudes, behavior problems, family struggles, they still look at you like giants. And you're someone outside of their sometimes conflicted homes who's a symbol of hope. You were for me. John Gottman, a leading marriage and family researcher, expressed in his book that teachers are becoming buffers for children who have rough home lives. And it's true, and you know that more than I. Look, I was just an average kid who, without the help of the proverbial village and exceptional teachers, would have done average things. Instead, teachers invested in me. You told me I could. You showed me the way. You took extra time when I needed it to teach me. You gave more, even at times when your own kids were at home and needed you. And because of you, an average kid with what could have been a bleak future got to attend one of the most prestigious institutions in America. I've gotten to travel the country and see the world. Now, I didn't realize that sending me to West Point would mean that a few short years later I'd be serving in combat in Iraq. But you know what? I count that as my greatest privilege. And I wouldn't have had it if it weren't for the likes of men and women like you in the Kingsport City School System. People often ask me, why did you go to West Point? I'm sometimes dumbfounded, and I can't accurately say why. When I was younger, I responded with things like, to serve my country and to do something challenging. And while those are certainly true, the real answer to that question didn't come into me till now. I went to West Point because some amazing people here believed I could. Not because I believed I could, because you did. As I begin to prepare for my own child to one day start school, I find myself expecting so much out of teachers. Being in a military family that moves and constantly faces deployment, I will be one of those parents looking for teachers to help encourage and positively influence my child while she's out of my grasp. I can only hope that her teachers will be just like the ones here in the Kingsport City School System. Because you're special, you're dedicated, you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.